Hey, 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 today is Gary Gygax Day. Yes, that's right. Today marks what would have been the 80th birthday for Gary Gygax, one of the grandfathers of our entire tabletop gaming hobby. Fantastic. Usually I don't have like a national day of sorts that relates to tabletop gaming, so it's pretty cool. And I will actually talk about Gary Gygax a little bit later in the show. But it is Friday. Lots is going on, and the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer. I'm your host here at the Daily Dope, as well as the Grand Poobah of the GamingGang.com. So kick back, relax. If this is your first time visiting, hey, it's pretty casual around here. I just chat about games and sometimes other geek culture stuff. Today, I am actually going to be reviewing Robotech Force of Arms from SolarFlare Games. So I've got it all set up. I am going to actually do a little bit of a how to play because it's not very difficult to jump into. And I will also provide my review. So today is Friday, July 27th, TGIF. Getting closer to Gen Con. Pretty excited about that, although things are kind of weird right now. I mean, I'm covering the show. My best friend Elliot Miller over at voiceofe.com has decided he's not going to attend, which throws a massive wrench into my plans. And my brother Greg usually goes for a couple of days, does cameraman duties for me as he does at San Diego Comic-Con, and that's kind of up in the air. So it's looking as if I might be hanging out for 4 days in Indianapolis all by myself. Which is okay. I can handle it. I'm a big boy. All right. Anyway, got a bunch of news today. Before I jump in, though, I do want to point out that this is a live stream. I know a vast majority of people actually watch it after the fact. But if you are tuning in live and you want to say hello, there is chat available through YouTube. If you want to get a closer look at something with Robotech Force of Arms, or you have a question, anything like that, feel free, chime in. It is not on screen. It is one of the ways that I keep some of the stranger commenters at bay. But I will actually chat back if you pop in and say hello or have a question, what have you. And of course on YouTube, it will show a chat stream. Anyway, moving right along. I've got some cool news today. There's some things that are coming out. I believe some of them are coming out at Gen Con, others are in the future. But if you're a miniatures gamer, then you are definitely going to be interested in some of the new minis, which are part of the Pathfinder Battles Deep Cut lineup from WizKids that are on the horizon, because they're supposed to be gargantuan dragons. There's going to be 3 of them. And I have to laugh because I see the white dragon they show unpainted and painted. And it's kind of funny. There's not a whole lot of difference between them. But the green and the red look pretty cool. Anyway, I've got the dope. This brand new series of gargantuan dragon miniatures from WizKids is sure to impress role players and miniature hobbyists alike. The sheer size will certainly eclipse most adventuring parties. These Pathfinder Battles Deep Cut miniatures are highly detailed figures, primed and ready to paint straight out of the box. And I have to say, I have seen these up close in the past at Gen Con. They are not the dragons. I've seen other of their Deep Cuts line. They're pretty nice. They look like they would paint up really, really well. Anyway, back to the news piece. Like all of the miniatures in this line, they include deep cuts for easier painting, and the packaging displays these miniatures in a clear and visible format so customers know exactly what they are getting. The Pathfinder Battles Deep Cuts Gargantuan Red Dragon, Green Dragon, and White Dragon are going to carry an MSRP of $29.99. I do believe these are coming out in the fall. I do not believe that these are going to be a Gen Con release. Now, they may have some previews, because a lot of times WizKids will have these big display cases set up for you to check out their products, and they show off a lot of the miniatures. That's how I've seen them. That's as close as I've gotten to seeing them. So they may be on display. I gotta point out, I have no idea the size of these miniatures. There is no indication that I have seen the exact scale. Well, I'm sure it's like 32 millimeter scale, but I don't know the size. I don't know how massive these are, but they are supposed to be gargantuan, so I would have to assume they're going to be bigger than just that. Anyway, talking about kind of role-playing game related products, there is an RPG source book, which is of a different stripe, and it's up for crowdfunding right now. And here's the dope on your best game ever from Monte Cook Games. All right, come on. There we go. Your best game ever is not your typical RPG sourcebook. It's not a book with adventures, spells, creatures, or magic items. It's not a book for characters at all, but a book for players. If you play or run role-playing games, this book is for you. Inside this gorgeous hardcover, suitable for your coffee table or your gaming table, you will be able to find advice and suggestions for enhancing your RPG experience at the table and away from it. This is an insider's look at everything that goes into the hobby. Finding a group, making a character, running a game, creating adventures, finding all the right ideas, hosting a game, and that's just for starters. If you're an experienced gamer, you've been gaming for a while now, maybe even years, or in my case, maybe even decades. You get the concepts and you understand the rules. No one needs to explain the dice to you. Your best game ever embraces the hobby you love and provides real tips, immediately usable advice, and hands-on pointers you can use at your game table. You'll find everything here from enhancing immersion, tips for running games online, creating characters with depth, world building, designing rules, dealing with personality conflicts that arise at the table, which I have to point out, that can be tricky, and more. If you're fairly new to gaming, your friends play RPGs. You've maybe watched some streaming games or given it a try a few times. You get the general idea, but where do you go from there? How do you really get into this hobby the way so many others have? This book will give you everything you need to learn how to choose the right game, how to fit into your game group or start your own group, and get you going on the fast track to being a great gamer. Yes, and we need more great gamers. There is a video, it's just a shade over 2 minutes, and it is hosted by Shauna Germain, who, if you're familiar with Monte Cook Games, has contributed tons to the various different lines of titles, as well as No Thank You Evil is her baby. She is the host, and I have to laugh when I see this video, and after you watch the video, I'll point out why. But I'm not laughing at it. I'm just kind of chuckling because there's something kind of funny I noticed. So kick back and let's watch the vid.
Here at Monte Cook Games, we've spent the last 6 years making great games like Numenera and Invisible Sun. But the truth is, we love all role-playing games. It's simply one of the most creative, imaginative hobbies out there. And best of all, you get to do it with your friends. But there's a lot to role-playing games, a lot more than just rules and dice. How do you find and foster a great game group? What's the best way to create and run an adventure? How can you best run a game online? And so much more. In other words, even if you've got the right dice and you know all the rules, how can you get the most out of every game session? How can you have your best game ever? In this Kickstarter campaign, we want to launch a new book. It's just for RPG players, but it isn't a book of rules or adventures. Instead, it's a book of suggestions, advice, and ideas that you can incorporate into your next game session, no matter what game you play. Your Best Game Ever is written by Monte Cook, and he's been gaming for 40 years and writing RPGs for 30. He wrote the Dungeon Master's Guide for 3rd edition, and he spent decades playing and running RPGs and thinking about how to make them a fun experience for all involved. And we're working with a whole group of consultants and other writers too, to ensure that we capture the essence of RPGs from a variety of perspectives. Because there's a lot of ways to play RPGs, and Your Best Game Ever embraces them all. As part of this campaign, we're also launching a revised version of our award-winning Cypher System rulebook to incorporate the techniques and ideas introduced in Your Best Game Ever, as well as some fun new options. But it's still totally compatible with all your other Cypher System books. Speaking of which, if we reach our funding goal, we have a bunch of amazing ideas for additional books containing new settings and genres for the Cypher System. We hope you'll join us and everyone else who loves RPGs so you can make every game your best game ever.
Yes!
Your Best Game Ever is past the 250% funding point. And you can reserve a copy of the book in PDF for $20 or the hardcover for $45 through August 24th. Do want to point out that the new revised Cypher System rulebook is also available in this Kickstarter. You can toss that in because I know that's pretty recent. That's pretty new. Now, expected delivery for Your Best Game Ever is September of next year, which I'm a little surprised it's kind of that far off. Okay, so I mentioned I was kind of chuckling. So if you watch that video, so there's Shauna Germain, talking about the book and everything else. So in the background, just over her right shoulder in the near right side of the table, that's Monte Cook, and he's supposed to be running the game. And he's like all animated, and he's like, there's a point where he's like looking up a rule, and you can tell he's supposed to be looking up a rule. He's got the book open, and then the person across the table from him, he's like, oh yeah, you're right. I just laugh. I think it's funny because your attention is drawn away from Shauna Germain over to the table as you're watching them playing the game. And I don't think it's, I'm not saying, I'm not making fun of it. I just think it's kind of funny. I think it's, I got a kick out of it. So as far as game advice books go, and trust me, I actually wrote one a few years ago. And in fact, I still have can't find the file for the actual PDF. But I do have the audio edition of it. I should throw it out there on the website. I did it as a special giveaway and things like that. I know a lot of people out there are like, okay, so maybe they don't like Monte Cook. Maybe they don't like John Wick. Maybe they don't like Mike Merles, Eric Moda, what have you, right? Because Robin D. Laws, because everybody's kind of got their different take on role-playing. And I'll give you a great example. I read a book a few years back that was written by Robin D. Laws, and some of the stuff he had in it, I didn't necessarily agree with. Now that didn't mean I disliked him personally. It was just, no, I don't see it that way. And that's kind of how it is with role-playing games. Everybody can enjoy role-playing games however they want. If you want to run a game where it's just, everybody's saying what their characters are doing and you enjoy it and you're having a blast, fantastic. If you're friends and you like to sit around and kind of get into character and things like that, which is sort of what I'll do. I'll do voices for the important NPCs. I don't do, voices for Bob the newspaper vendor and things like that. Then, if you like to use voices and kind of, get into character, that's fantastic too. You can enjoy the game however you like. One thing I point out, even with all the different people who have their own different takes that they want to share with you about role-playing games, and I do want to point out that Your Best Game Ever has a lot of contributors, tons of contributors. It's not just Monte Cook sitting down at the word processor in front of his laptop just banging stuff out. It's a bunch of different people involved in it. So I would take a guess that there's probably some pretty good tips that you can pick up from the book, regardless what kind of experience you have. I mean, I've been role-playing for, 37, maybe 38 years. And there's still little nuggets that I like to pick up. And I like to pick up RPGs all the time just so I can, kit bash things together. So, if you're interested in checking it out, the Kickstarter does run for your best game ever through August 24th. Yesterday, I talked about an upcoming game called Archmage, which is from Starling Games. And I also made mention of their other upcoming game, Everdell, and I do believe copies of this are going to be available at Gen Con. So this is something that really strikes me as being unique. So I do want to share some of the dope on Everdell. Within the charming valley of Everdell, beneath the boughs of towering trees, among meandering streams and mossy hollows, a civilization of forest critters is thriving and expanding. From Everfrost, to Bellsong, many a year have come and gone, but the time has come for new territories to be settled and new cities established. You will be the leader of a group of critters intent on just such a task. There are buildings to construct, lively characters to meet, events to host. You will have a busy year ahead of yourself. Will the sun shine brightest on your city before the winter moon rises? I wonder. Everdell is a game of dynamic tableau building and worker placement. On their turn, a player can take one of three actions. Place a worker. Each player has a collection of worker pieces. These are placed on the board locations, events, and destination cards. Workers perform various actions to further the development of a player's tableau, gathering resources, drawing cards, and taking other special actions. You can play a card. Each player is building and populating a city. A tableau of up to 15 construction and critter cards. There are 5 types of cards: travelers, production, destination, governance, and prosperity. I like prosperity. Cards generate resources: twigs, resin, pebbles, and berries. Grant abilities and ultimately score points. The interactions of the cards reveal numerous strategies and a nearly infinite variety of working cities. You can also prepare for the next season. Workers are returned to the player supply and new workers are added. The game is played from winter through the onset of the following winter, at which point the player with the city with the most points wins. Everdell is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and plays in around 40 to 80 minutes. Now I have seen conflicting information. I have seen distributor information saying the game plays in 20 minutes. And it certainly does not look like a game that's going to play in 20 minutes. I don't know. I'm going with the BGG info, which says 40 to 80 minutes. The game is going to carry an MSRP of $60 when it arrives in stores on October 26th. Hey, 2 days after my birthday, so if I don't get a review copy of it, anybody want to celebrate my birthday, send me one. I'm just teasing. I'm just joking. I do believe Everdell will have some units available. I think Starling Games will have some copies of Everdell available at Gen Con. I think they're going to have some copies of Archmage, which looks very interesting as well, which I talked about on yesterday's show during the news. I think they're going to have them. I got to say, it's like the second time I've talked about this game because it was on Kickstarter and I shared the information. I love the artwork. I think the artwork just is phenomenal. I think it looks really, really good. It's a very interesting concept. I gotta say, I'm sharing an image and it's a bat. And the bat is like someone who's helpful. The bat's not an evil character. So there's a bonus there because bats aren't necessarily bad. And it really looks like this pops. This is going to stand out visually on the game table. The tableau looks really, really cool. So anyway, just want to point that out. As I said, I'm not positive if this is going to be coming out at Gen Con or not. I think there might be a few copies that are there. I have reached out to Starling Games to see about maybe doing an interview with them and talk about Archmage and Everdell and some of their other releases. Have not heard back yet. All right. You may recall that I reviewed This War of Mine from Galacta Games and Ares Games, as well as Studio 11-Bit. And I really, really thought it was an excellent game. Probably not a game that's going to appeal to everyone, but Ares Games and Galactic Games are going to expand this War of Mine this fall, the board game, of course. And I do have the dope on Tales from the Ruined City, and this may address some issues that people have with the game being, I mean, let's be honest, it can be kind of a downer, very interesting, really draws you in, but it's sad. So here's the dope. As the siege of Pogarin escalates, its citizens must employ new methods of survival. Players are forced underground to protect themselves from shelling, only to discover that the city's sewers have a lot to offer, both in terms of danger and opportunities. As if this was not enough, newcomers from the countryside bring tales of atrocities as well as supplies from their destroyed homes. Will players welcome them with open arms or close their door to keep all strangers away? Tales from the Ruined City enables players to explore the city to its fullest. Sewers offer new ways to travel and scavenge. Farmers with their market are there to trade or to steal from if players are pushed to the limit, while thugs threaten to take everything from the shelter. Additionally, with 5 completely new scenarios, this is where I'm talking where it might lighten things up a little bit, players will have a chance to radically change the mood of their campaign from a criminal story through a trial of survival in face of an epidemic to a tale of mutual care among the neighbors. See, I wasn't kidding. This War of Mine, Tales from the Ruined City, will require the base game to play, obviously enough. The game is for 1 to 6 players, ages 18 and up, and plays in about 45 minutes to 2 hours. My experience is it's usually closer to the 2-hour mark. This expansion is going to carry an MSRP of $44.90, kind of an odd MSRP, when it arrives in Q4. So, as I pointed out, I reviewed this War of Mine, the board game, and I was knocked out. I really was. I was really blown away by the game itself. And a lot of people out there have talked about how, yes, they were also blown away by the game and they've played it once and they never want to play it again. And I understand that. I really, because the subject matter. I mean, it's, you're a civilian trapped in a city in the midst of a civil war and you really have no dog in the fight. You're just trying to survive. So I am glad to see that there's a new expansion that's going to come out, which is going to actually build upon the core game itself, right? So if you like that heavy kind of make you think and question what you would maybe do in that situation sort of game, it's going to add some new stuff to that, but it's also going to bring in some new scenarios that may not be as heavy-hearted as this War of Mine, the board game, can be. There is, well, it's kind of speaking of kind of strange, wars and things like that. There's a new RPG that's available from, I believe it's called Land of Nop. I don't think it's Land of Nope, because it's N-O-P. I gotta say, it strikes me as something that is pretty unique. Or at least the title is unique, because here's the dope on Sigmata. This signal kills fascists. From the author of Cryptomancer comes Sigmata. This signal kills fascists, a cyberpunk tabletop role-playing game about ethical insurgency against a fascist regime, taking place in a dystopian version of 1980s America. Players assume the role of receivers, the superheroic vanguard of the resistance, who possess incredible powers when in range of FM radio towers, emitting a mysterious number sequence called the Signal. When the signal is up, receivers lead the charge against battalions of regime infantry and armor, or serve as the People's Shield, protecting mass demonstrations from the brutality of a militarized police force and neo-Nazi hooligans. When the signal is down, however, receivers are mere mortals, desperately fleeing from a powerful state that senses their weakness. It's called Sigmata, a signal-induced stigmata, because That's what I keep wanting to call this game, is Stigmata, because that's a word. Anyway, it's called the Sigmata, a signal-induced stigmata, because it is both a blessing and a curse. At least when you're marked by the state, you can't sit on the sidelines anymore. Constructor Cybernetic Revolutionary, with a wide assortment of cybernetic implants, signal-fueled superpowers, iconic equipment, and invocable story hooks. Leverage strong teamwork mechanics to prevail in structured scenes of combat, evasion, and intrigue, each scene putting every player at the table in the spotlight. Manage a fragile alliance of partisans from vastly different ideological backgrounds, and steel the resistance against sabotage, extremism, dwindling morale, and shocking betrayals. Contend with the regime in a constantly evolving political struggle powered by the game's built-in insurgency sandbox, which incorporates resistance and regime strategy, factional loyalty, and the sentiment of the people. This signal kills fascists. Repeat the signal. I do want to point out, my understanding is this game does contain explicit language and discussions and depictions of a political ideology which is centered around extreme bigotry. So this is not a game for the kids. The 331-page core book for Sigmata is available right now from DriveThruRPG for $25. Gotta say, I don't know if the game is any good. I don't know if the system is decent or if it's what. But, I mean, it was a very successful Kickstarter. And I know, is it Cryptomancer? I believe it is Cryptomancer. That role-playing game, I've heard good things about that, and it's different, is what I've heard. This seems very unique. This, I would not mind at least checking this out, because it seems like it's a pretty interesting setting. But once again, for the right group, right? You're not going to bust this out with the, your 13-year-old kids to play around the table. I don't think. Anyway, as I was talking about DriveThruRPG and Sigmata, do want to point out that right now, through the end of July, there is the Christmas in July sale going on at DriveThruRPG. You can save 25% on over 50,000 PDFs. That's right, core books, adventures, source books, maps, you name it, 25% off. Not everything. There are a few things that I've seen that they are not on sale, but I swear, over 50,000 items, you're going to find something you can save some dough with. Keep some jingle in your pocket, right? And with DriveThruRPG, I always point out, if you're going to go visit our friends over there, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners, and that way, if you do happen to make a purchase, I receive a small portion of that purchase, and I swear, I got to point out, a lot of times that goes a long way to helping keep the gaming gang around, because most months it pays for my hosting. So those 50 cents, 25 cents here and there, it all adds up. So I really do appreciate the folks who are using our banners. I have seen loads and loads of people using our banners to go to DriveThruRPG. So I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you so very much. Okay, before I jump into the review of Robotech, Force of Arms, isn't it funny how the news almost always seems to run about a half hour? Doesn't matter if I've got 4 news pieces, 6 news pieces, it's usually about a half hour. So, God. Anyway, so I am going to review Robotech Force of Arms in just a couple of minutes. Did want to mention, so today is Gary Gygax Day. It would have marked his 80th birthday. Wow. And gotta say, I mean, there are people out there who don't like Gary Gygax or whatever. That's okay. I understand he wasn't necessarily the easiest human being to get along with at times. But then again, isn't that really kind of the case with a lot of us? Nobody's always walking on sunshine, right? But you have to say, Gary Gygax had a huge influence, not just on role-playing games. Really, not just on role-playing games. If there had been no Dungeons & Dragons, now I'm not saying that we would have never seen role-playing games pop out there. Because, you know, I want to give Dave Arneson a lot of credit as well. He had some fantastic ideas. He just had a hard time putting them down on paper that made sense, and Gygax was able to make sense. So the two of them collaborating together, that's what really brought Dungeons and Dragons to the fore. But it isn't just role-playing games. It isn't just tabletop games. It's all of geek culture. It is movies. It is comic books. It is just regular books. If not for Gary Gygax, our hobby and the things we love, the things we like to get away from the horrors of this world sometime, or the drudgery of the real world sometimes, would be vastly different without Gary Gygax. So, gotta say, big tip of the cap to Mr. Gygax. I actually listened to an audiobook. It was called, I want to say, Empire of Imagination. That was pretty good. I learned a lot about Gary Gygax and the early years of TSR and D&D that I did not know. And I knew quite a bit. And one of the cool things is I did not realize what a connection Gary Gygax actually had to Chicago. I don't recall if he was born in Chicago, but he as a kid, he grew up in Chicago before his parents moved up to Lake Geneva. And even when TSR was first formed and Dungeons and Dragons was out there, Gygax would actually still work a 9 to 5, and he worked in Chicago. So he would actually have to take the train from Lake Geneva down to Chicago and back every day to go to work. Until then, that was until TSR really started to take off. So I thought that was kind of cool. I honestly, I mean, I've been up to Lake Geneva, and one of these years I should go up to GaryCon, check it out. But I've been up to Lake Geneva umpteen times, then Milwaukee and stuff like that. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. I did not realize that that Gary Gygax had that kind of connection with Chicago. And Empire of Imagination, I really enjoyed it, except for the parts where the author kind of like gets into Gary Gygax's mind, especially at the point where Gygax passes away, what he's thinking at the time. I was like, come on, man, don't do that. But the rest of the book I thought was really good. Really enjoyed it. Learned a lot. Okay, so anyway, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be reviewing Robotech Force of Arms from SolarFlare Games. I know that's why people are tuning in. The game is designed by Dave Killingsworth with artwork provided by Andorra Sidonia, taking a guess, and Joel Lopez. The game is for 2 players. It's for ages 8 and up and plays in 20 to 40 minutes. I have to be honest, once we got the hang of the rules, I don't think the games are going more than 20 minutes. It is available, I believe, right now. I know it was available. There were copies available at Origins Game Fair. I'm not positive if Dave is going to be at Gen Con. He might. So you might be able to pick up copies at Gen Con. Hey, look, Dave's chiming in chat. Uh-oh. Oh, man, my feet are to the fire now. The designer of the game is watching. That's happened a few times before. Also, Andrew Kramer and Mortis Logan. Taking a guess, design work? I don't think art. I'm sure Dave will chime in there in chat. Anyway, Robotech Force of Arms does carry an MSRP of $19.85, which, interestingly enough, I thought was a misprint until David pointed out, no, it's $19.85 for a reason. And I was like, oh yeah, now I get it. As someone who's a Robotech fan, I remember watching Robotech as a kid, and it's funny, I recently, within about the past 2 months, introduced Robotech to my nephew Cameron. So, okay, so Dave is pointing out that the game's gonna hit stores in mid-August, and Andrew and Mortis did design work. Okay, so Heroes artwork is from Andrew and Mortis, the card designs. Cool deal. So there you have it. And of course, you'll see this streaming along on the right side. So let's swing on over to the other camera here because I've got the game set up. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a how to play. So because the game is not super difficult to wrap your head around, and then I will actually hold up some of the cards to get a better look. So It's a two-player game. What it is, it's effectively you're battling. It's a battle between the Robotech Defense Forces as well as the Zentradi. And if you're not familiar with Robotech, sorry I can't help you. I'm not going to go into all this detail about the show. Of course, this is actually Macross. So those who are familiar with Robotech know that Robotech is actually a conglomeration of 3 different Japanese anime series that were recut and dubbed to put together so it could be sold to syndication by Harmony Gold. So the first, which most people are very familiar with, and when they talk about Robotech, they're usually talking about Macross, which is the first series. So that's one with Rick Hunter and the Zentradi and the focus on that. So what you're going to do is each player is going to choose what side are you going to represent? Are you going to represent the Robotech Defense Forces or RDF, or are you going to represent the Zentradi? Since my nephew really digs Robotech, he really enjoyed it, he was always playing as the RDF. So I'm like, okay. Dave says Robotech's currently streaming on Netflix. Yep, that's where my nephew was watching it. Okay, so anyway, yeah, back in the day, I watched it on TV. I was in high school when it first came out, and I thought, wow, this is pretty wild. People are getting killed in this cartoon, which really didn't see too much of, except outside of like Johnny Quest back in the day when they did Johnny Quest. I think late 60s was that cartoon. All right, so anyway, back to the game. So you're going to decide which side are you going to play? You're going to play the RDF or are you going to play the Zentradi? So if you're, regardless of who you're playing, you're going to get 4 capital ships for your side. You're going to have, and these are the capital ships here. So red represents the RDF. You can also tell from the icon right there. And on the card, it's going to tell you in the upper right, what is the ship? In the lower left, it's going to tell you what is that ship's defense. And then in the lower right, it's going to tell you how many victory points is this ship worth if you destroy it. So that's an example of the RDF. Of course, here's the SDF-1. And the SDF-1 actually has 2 different cards because you can perform the, oh gosh, off the top of my head, was it the Daedalus maneuver that turns it into kind of like the giant robot? I think it's the Daedalus maneuver. Maybe I'm wrong. It's been years since I watched the show. I'll give you an example. Here's the Zentradi flagship. So, of course, the SDF-1 as well as the Zentradi flagship are worth the most victory points. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually take the cards, the the capital ships, and you're going to put them together, you're going to shuffle them up, and then you're going to deal them out around this empty space card. So you're not going to necessarily have all of the RDF forces in one spot. You're not going to have all the Zentradis in one spot either. So it's going to be mixed up. Then each of the players is going to receive 12 fighter cards. And it's all different units from Robotech. Some will have an attack value, some will have a defensive value, and some will have a special ability. So here we see this is one of the Destroids. You know what? I'm going to pop on the old reading glasses because it's a little kind of difficult to talk and be holding these up at the same time. Okay, so we see this is the Tomahawk here. So this is going to give a defense. So the little shield here indicates this is a defensive unit. And then it shows if you play this card face up, you'll gain 3 defense tokens if you play it face up, because the big part of this game is maneuvering these ships around, and you're going to be putting your fighters out. Most of the time, they are going to be upside down. Oh, there you go. And Dave points out, yes, you get victory points if you successfully save your own ships. So that's to kind of give you an example here. Then we've got the Phalanx. Now, this doesn't have a special ability, so we see that gives it defense of 5. So normally you're going to be playing this card face down during the tactical phase. Then we've got the Battloid, and once again, it's going to show you, oh, so this is what you get. So a lot of times you have to kind of juggle. Do you want to get these special tokens, or do you want to keep what you're doing a secret? So for an example here, this is an attack card. So we see we've got a target, kind of like a target symbol there. So that shows this has an attack value of 5, which is pretty high. It's pretty good card. And you notice there's nothing down below it. So there is no benefit to you playing this card face up. You're going to play that face down. So you're going to have a dozen of these. You're going to have a little reference card. So the reference card is going to tell you, okay, so what do you do in your turn? What happens? And then there's also a little reference on this side talking about the different tokens. I'll talk about the tokens in just a sec. So you're going to get to play all of your fighter cards. Now, each of the players are also going to get a series of hero cards and command cards. And fans of the series are going to be like, oh, cool. There's Rick Hunter. Nice. Oh, there's Lisa Hayes. There's Max Sterling. Captain Clovel. So you've got hero cards. So you have 4 hero cards, and then you've got command cards. A variety of command cards that are going to allow you to do different things. So for an example, we have a fold, and of course it's going to tell you right on the bottom what playing that card is going to allow you to do. Reflex weapons, secret mission, and of course for the Zentradi, a little bit different. So during the game, you're going to get to play only 1 hero card and 2 command cards. Oh, here's the SDF transformed. So kind of keep that off to the side, because that doesn't count as a command card. So that's another thing as you're playing, and that's going to be like the last kind of phase in the game. You're going to have to decide which hero card you want to use and which 2 command cards you're going to want to use. Now we'll take a look at some of these tokens. Tokens are pretty simple to figure out. That gives you a +1 attack, and they're dual-sided. They're nice and thick. They'll hold up to repeated play. Also got defensive +1, just like so. It's good, double-sided. Each side is going to get spy tokens. Spy/counter spy tokens. Spy versus spy tokens. Now, this is in Mad Magazine. So, you're going to have these spy tokens, and of course, green represents Zentradi, and red represents the RDF. We also have ship lock tokens, which will lock a ship in place, so you can't move it. I'll explain that in just a bit. And then we've also got proto-culture tokens, which, if they're placed on an enemy ship, give you +2 to your attack. If they're placed on a friendly ship, they give you +2 to defense. And these spy tokens can be used for a few different things. One of them is to prevent, to try to prevent someone from, like, putting a token on their ship. You can go, oh yeah, I'm going to play a spy token. Or you can use the spy token to take a look at a card that is face down. So that's one kind of cool aspect about the game too, is these spy tokens don't just have a single use. So you're kind of juggling, okay, I only have 2, what should I use them for? So, and the only counters, the only tokens you're going to start off with are going to be these spy tokens. All these other tokens you are going to have to earn. Yep, it's just, Dave points out that there's really no difference between the SDF-1 card like this. And it was funny because as I was playing with my nephew, first game he goes, oh yeah, it's different. I'm like, no, it's got this same victory points, same defense. It's like, no, it's different. I'm like, Cameron, I'm telling you, look at the card. It's not different. The artwork is different. And I know some people out there are going to think, well, how come none of these capital ships have any kind of attack value? Just the way it is. It's just a defensive value. Okay, so what you'll end up doing to start the game, it's going to tell you right here what you're going to do. So you're going to decide, flip a coin, do whatever. You can say, hey, whoever watched the last episode of Robotech goes first. So you're going to get to move 2 ships. Well, I should say, you're going to switch places. You're going to be able to move a ship. So let's say I'm the Zentradi. It's my turn. I'm going to push these counters kind of out of the way. Kind of move some of this out. Because, as always, space is at a premium. So what you're going to end up doing is, each side's going to decide, okay, so which areas, which sides of this grid am I going to control? Am I going to control these like this? Am I going to control this? Am I going to control this? So you get to decide on that. You can't place fighters in that all over the place. You've got 2 sides that you're going to be able to work with. So let's say I'm the Zentradi player and I got to go first. I get to move one of my ships. It's the first thing you get to do. This is the tactical phase. In the tactical phase, you can switch the positions of the ships. So I'll say, okay, I'm going to take my carrier and I'm going to move Armor 1. I'm going to swap positions here because what you're going to do is you're going to lay your fighters down in the rows. So I'm probably going to sit here and be like, okay, I want this row here and this row here. Now I get to place 2 fighters. And this is where you get to say, okay, so, well, do I want to play face down cards that don't actually give me any sort of a special benefit? Or do I want to play some cards face up to get those tokens? Because remember, the only tokens you're going to get are the spy tokens. You got to earn everything else. So in a situation like this, I wanted to move them so I could say, okay, well, maybe I want to put the officer's pod here with an attack of 6. I'm going to play it face down in this row. Because what you're looking to do is you're looking to beat the defense number of these ships. So this officer's pod here, I'll just flip it up. The officer's pod here would be attacking all the ships in this row. All the ships in that row would be getting attacked. So, of course, my opponent is sitting there figuring, okay, well, I'm sure he just dropped some attack card down there. They're probably going to start looking at trying to move around. All right, and then maybe I'll say, okay, I'm going to play Reconnaissance Pod face up because that would gain me 3 defense tokens, and I might decide I'm going to play it in there. And I'm going to get me 3 of these home plates. They're shields, I know, but they kind of look like home plates. So I get to put these off to the side with my tokens because I'm going to get to use these. But of course, because I played this face up, now my opponent knows that I'm adding 3 defense to all the ships in this row. So obviously enough, on my next turn, I might try to move the strike cruiser into this row. And once I've placed my 2 fighters and had moved my ship, then it's going to be other players' turn. So let's say, for an example, Cameron is playing. We'll put that outside here. Cameron decides, okay, since I get this row and this row, I am going to move this ship with this ship. And he decides, I'm going to put that down like that. And I'm going to put this face up like this. So for an example, this is a Battleoid. In fact, I want to say the VF-1J is kind of the standard ship from the show. It's coming off the top of my head. I seem to recall, I think this is kind of the Veritech that you usually see. Of course, it's in Battleoid mode. So we see it's got an attack of 4, but if it's played you get to gain 2 ship lock tokens. So, let's say Cameron would play that face up. So he would get 2 ship lock tokens. And what the ship lock tokens basically do is they lock a ship in place. So once you've gone and done, it's just for the heck of it, just to kind of give you an idea. I'll kind of move these around a little bit. Let's do it like that. And then where's camera? Oh, there we go. Let's do that. Of course, you would certainly not play the game like this. Do this. Face down, face down. Okay, so once you've done that, then you would move into, once everybody's moved a ship one time, each time you're putting your fighters down, you're going to get to move a ship. VF1J is Vermilion 1, Rick's spaceship. Yeah, that's what I thought so. So anyway, so what you'll end up doing is, at this point, then you get to start dropping tokens down on the different ships. So, whatever tokens you've earned, you're going to get to spend. So, an example here, there wasn't a lot of cards that were being played face up. Just, I kind of toss them down there. So, first would be, okay, well, I get to play a defense token. So, all right, put it on the flagship. Then Cameron would say, oh, okay, well, I got these lock tokens. I'm going to lock your flagship here. Now, I could use one of my spy tokens to prevent that lock. If we had played face-up cards that gave us protoculture, the spy token would not be able to stop that, because the protoculture trumps any of the other tokens. There are some cards that will also allow you to ignore the ship lock. But what the ship lock basically does is, because when you play command cards and things like that, there are commands that will allow you to move ships again. So if your opponent has sat there and they've been like, yeah, I've loaded up this row with attack, this row here and this row here with attacks, and I am able to move the ships and replace them, it's going to mess up that player's strategy. So once you've laid out your tokens, and we'll say, like that, just as an example, we'll pretend that there were some other face-up tokens, face-up cards that earned the tokens. And then, for an example, okay, I'd be like, oh, okay, so I'm going to spend my spy token. I want to see what this card is. You flip it over. Then, once you get to the next phase, it's the hero command phase. So, as a Zentradi player, I was going first. Whoever goes first, the second player now gets to go first in this phase. So, say for an example, they can play Rick Hunter and gain 3 tokens of any combination, attack or defense, and then they're able to put those tokens immediately on 3 different ships. We got Max Starling, and one of the cool things is that the character cards, the hero cards, do sort of reflect the characters from the show. So like Max Starling. Max Starling is, an excellent offensive pilot. Whereas Rick's pretty much, he's a great pilot, but Max is actually a better natural pilot than he is. We've got Lisa Hayes, allows you to activate the pinpoint barrier, add 3 defense tokens to the SDF-1. Henry Global gets to perform the Daedalus maneuver. So you would actually choose one of the heroes. Now you can do it in any order. You can do your command cards first, mix it up, but you're only going to get to be able to play one of these and 2 of the commands. So you've got like secret missions, swap one of your tokens with one of your other tokens. Espionage, remove 2 enemy tokens from the play area. So there's all different kinds of stuff. One thing I thought was kind of interesting for the Zentradi, like Britai, you get 2 attack, 2 defense if you play him. If you play Chiron, who's kind of like a loose cannon lunatic, note you can swap a capital ship with the empty space. Yep, yeah, you can. You can swap the cards as long as you start with your card. You can swap with any cards, including the empty space. But Chiron's kind of interesting because Chiron is kind of a double-edged sword in the show. So it says place 2 attack tokens on any one of your ships, gain 4 attack tokens, and place them on any orthogonally adjacent enemy ship. So you actually take hits by gaining attacks. And then, of course, we've got the commands. So repositioning, that's being able to maneuver, move a ship. Defensive ace with, is it Mira? I forget her name. Miria. That's it, Miria. Got Azonia as one of your heroes. You got the infiltrate. So you've got remove 2 enemy tokens from the play area. You got the secret mission. So some of the commands are very similar between Zentradi as well as with the RDF player. Like the artwork, dig the artwork. Gotta be honest, Robotech as a show, I think still holds up as a series. The artwork, I mean the animation. But the funny thing is, there've been a lot of other like Macross series over the years, over the decades since Macross, and they've had some awesome animation. But a lot of times the stories just blow. They don't, and of course, granted, a lot of them don't run 20-some episodes. A lot of them are kind of OVA, where it's like 6 episodes, stuff like that. Excellent animation and kind of weak story. So, gotta be honest, Macross is my favorite of the 3 series that are incorporated into Robotech. All right, so once you've done your tokens, now you've done your command phase. You've played your 3 different cards, your 1 hero, your 2 commands. Now what you're going to do is you're going to start revealing your cards and totaling up what's going on here. Because as I mentioned before, what you're trying to do is you are trying to overcome the defenses as the attacker, and as the defender, you're hoping that your defense can hold off the attacker. So I'm just kind of giving you an idea here. Now, I'll be the first to point out, if basic math throws you for a loop, probably not going to be the game for you. So Dave says, hoping to drop a free 6-card expansion called the Grand Cannon expansion in the GMT magazine. Oh, that's cool. Game Trade. So that's cool. GTM. I said GMT. Yeah, my buddies over at GMT, they're like, why would we put that in our magazine? All right, so anyway, so what you're going to do is you're going to add up, okay, so what's the total defense? What's the total attack? So to kind of give you an idea, and like I said, this is going to be a mess because obviously I was not playing through the game. So we would see, okay, so for the heavy cruiser here, we've got +1 defense, so that'd be 1. +3 from this card here, so that's a defense of 4. And there's no defense here, it's just all attack. So it'd be a defense of 4, got an attack of 4, and strangely enough, the way this works out, these are all defensive cards too. So this heavy cruiser would survive. So it'd be like, okay, so that stays over on the Zentradi side. For an example here, we've got armor 1, we've got a defense of 4, and we'll flip this over there, an attack of 5. So the defense here would be 5. We've got 5 attack, 8 attack. Oh, boom! This would have been destroyed. This would go into the Zentradi players' victory point pile. And you just go ship by ship and total stuff up, and you find out who's got the most victory points. So what you do is you basically total up the victory points, which are right down there, of the enemy ships you've destroyed, and add those to the victory point total of the ships of your own fleet that you've been able to prevent. Ties go face down, nobody gets them. Yeah, but... oh, crap, you're right. Sorry, Dave. Yeah, ties. Yeah, nobody gets it on a tie. But we would still be getting this one. So basically, at the end of the game, you're going to total up your victory points, and whoever's got the most victory points is the winner. And that is pretty much how you play Robotech Force of Arms from SolarFlare Games. And I'm glad Dave is watching because I forgot that ties. I thought ties went to the defender. I was, for some reason, thinking ties went to the defender, but no, ties go to nobody. So as you can see, even though I've got this stuff squeezed in, you don't need a ton of room to be able to play Robotech Force of Arms, but you do need a bit of space on the table. So, I mean, most people have plenty of room to be able to fit this on in. All right, so that's how you play it. So what do I basically think of? Crisis point, ties go to the defender. That's why you thought, okay. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for pointing that out. Because I'm like, why am I thinking ties gonna... Anyway, so what do I think of Robotech Force of Arms as some, like, cat hair goes blowing past? Thanks, Pinky. You can have that back. I have not heard from Pinky today, and she's down here. Usually, she makes some noise, but I'm a little surprised. Smokey's sleeping. She's sat out like always. So, the license for Robotech is going to be coming to an end. So, you are going to start seeing... I mean, there are quite a few Robotech games that are hitting, that are out there right now. Some are from companies I have never heard of, and there are some that are like for companies that I've heard stories of don't produce any good games at all. There's something on the wind saying there's going to be a Robotech role-playing game that's coming out, which used to be with Palladium, but Palladium lost license, and I'm not going to talk anything about Palladium books. Just saying they don't have license anymore. But the license to Robotech expires in, I believe, and I'm sure Dave's still watching, he can chime in chat. I think it's 2020. Might be 2019. So effectively what that means is Harmony Gold will no longer have the rights to those 3 animes which make up Robotech. So everybody and their brother are looking to get a Robotech game out there as soon as they can, because it is very, very possible that there won't be Robotech. Now, that said, I like Force of Arms. There's a game here. There we go. Dave says July 2020 is when Harmony Gold loses their license. I think everybody. Oh, but they're working on keeping it. I don't know. I have no idea. I've heard different stuff. Anyway, we're talking about the game though. I like the game because there is a game here. I was a little concerned, although I have played other games from SolarFlare Games. So like Nightmare Forest, had a lot of fun with that. Both Nightmare Forests. I especially like the alien abduction one. It's a lot of fun. You can check out my reviews of those. I've done videos for those too. What this isn't a very meaty game. This is a game where you're going to bust it out once you learn how to play it. It's going to take you maybe about 20 minutes. And yeah, maybe you'll play it a couple of times in a row and then move on to probably heavier fare. Now, when I do a review score for a game, I look at, okay, so what do I believe the game sets out to do? The game is there to give you kind of a Robotech feel. It's got the visuals for Robotech. It's supposed to be something fast. You're going to pick it up pretty easily, learn how to play it. I do understand this game is going to be releasing in China. And China is not necessarily known as a big haven for tabletop gaming. So once again, it's a hobby that's kind of new to the Chinese. And more companies are kind of making inroads into the Chinese market. So you don't want to make a game that's super heavy because they're going to be like, what the hell is this? Probably. So I like it. I like the ability that you can kind of pull a switcheroo at the end with the different command cards and the hero cards. I like the fact that you can watch your opponent's face just kind of drop when they've loaded up their row with all these attack cards, and now you've moved your ship out of there and replaced it with one of their ships, so nothing going on there. I like that. But once again, it's not a very heavy game, but it's not meant to be a very heavy game. It's just supposed to be something that kind of gives you a little blast of Robotech as you're kicking it. I hate using the filler game title. I like to call games wind up, wind down games. And this is certainly one of them. My nephew Cameron enjoyed it. He thought it was fun. But once again, I mean, it's not, suddenly, reinventing the wheel as far as tabletop gaming goes. But it is fun. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I give Robotech Force of Arms a solid 7. I can recommend it, especially if you're a Robotech fan, or if you like a family game that's got a Robotech flavor to it for a couple of players, like maybe you're a fan of Robotech and your kid is a fan of Robotech. It's a nice game to sit down and hopefully whoop their butt with. So that is it. That is it for today's show. So on Monday, I am so happy that this is not an incredibly heavy box like Thunderstone Quest. 16 pounds is what Thunderstone Quest chimes in at. So I'm going to smash up the bigger, geekier box. This is mainly for storage, and there are some factions in it. So we're going to take a look at the factions. Then on Tuesday, I really think I'm going to do a show where I'm going to talk about five RPGs that are going to be releasing at Gen Con that I am very interested to take a peek at. So I know there are more than 5, but there are 5 that I'm really kind of like, And because it'll be my last show before Gen Con, if you are going to Gen Con, maybe it's something that you weren't aware of. So kind of, maybe keep your eyes peeled for these. It's an eclectic mix. It's not all just one sort of game. And no, the playtest for Pathfinder 2.0 is not one of them, because that's a playtest copy. It's not a fully fleshed out game that's coming out yet. All right, so that is it for today's show. As always, if you aren't watching The Daily Dope or catching one of the Gaming Gang videos, by all means, go to thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Dave's given us a little bit of last info. Oh, that's right. He's got 2 more games coming out. Based on Southern Cross and, was it Mesopotamia or Mesopotamia? I forget what the one anime was called in Japan that's part of Robotech. So yes, Dave is pointing out that there are 2 more games on the horizon. In fact, there's little cards for them in the box. I'll hold these up here. So those are Mousepedia. Yeah, I was gonna say, like I said, Macross was always my favorite one. I didn't really watch that much more of it. I mean, I've seen it. It's just like, nah, I like the Macross the best. Anyway, so once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and enjoy your weekend. Have a great weekend. Have a very safe weekend, and I will be back on Monday. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.